All right, great. So I guess we'll start with introductions. My name is Santosh Vallabhaneni, and I'm the Secretary General for the conference. I'm a sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania, studying in the German Fisher Program for Management Technology, which is a dual degree program between the Wharton School of Business and the School of Engineering. So on campus, I'm involved obviously with the IAA. I'm also involved with the M&T Innovation Fund, which funds small-scale startups around the area, and also part of the PiCap Alpha fraternity.
That's cool. That's like Santosh's bio.
Yeah.
I'm Hannah White. I'm a senior, which is I'm in my last year. I'm studying philosophy, politics, and economics in the college with a concentration in choice and behavior. I am administration for ILMUNC India, so I'm a USG. Yeah. Actually, Drew was reminding me that we are USGs.
Yeah. You guys are USGs.
Yeah, we are USGs. And what else should I tell them about myself?
She's from Alaska.
I'm just like a regular person. So we'll just tell you about crisis. That's more interesting.
Yep. All right, anyway, so let's get started with regards to crisis. And remember, if you guys have any questions or doubts throughout our entire seminar, just feel free to post in the side. There appears to be close to a minute and a half delay, right? So from what I can see from the chat. So yeah, we're once again just going to be mindful of that. All right, great. So in terms of crisis aspect itself, crisis committees are very, very different from conventional committees or even crisis committees that you probably have been to in India, right? So personally, I've competed in India and a ton of crisis committees there, but ILMUNC was a completely different crisis experience for me. So at ILMUNC India, there's basically two components to a crisis. One is the in-committee room, and one is out of the committee, right? So when you guys are in committee, so when you guys are in committee, one, you're going to be talking about you're going to be dealing with the committee topic as a whole. There's no particular rules or procedure as such that are strictly enforced. You can think of it more as a continuous moderated caucus that kind of is underway, and you guys can start raising various subtopics dealing with the particular agenda at hand. Now, as you can see in terms of both committees in Reconstructing Russia and Constellus, there is no definitive agenda given because it's more of a situation-based approach. You guys are currently simulating the boardroom of a committee, or you guys are simulating Yeltsin cabinet, right, where you guys are probably the government of Russia trying to reconstruct it, and it's a whole situation you guys have to deal with. And how you guys want to deal with that situation is basically left up to you guys and how you guys want to tackle these problems.
Yeah, so what will happen is you'll be in committee debating a particular topic, and then someone will come in and say, hey, we have a crisis update, this has just unfolded, like a bomb has been dropped in this region, or these people have died, or this country said this. Usually it's something pretty big that moves the entire track of debate to something new that you guys need to respond and deal with immediately. So what will happen is you guys will typically switch the debate to talking about that topic. And then you will also, do they know about notes? So you will also have, are we doing the notepad system?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll also have two notepads. And what you can do with these notepads is you can write to crisis and ask them to do things for you unilaterally. So you'll be debating and trying to come up with a resolution or a directive, things that you agree with in committee. But say I am a delegate, it's UNSC and I'm a delegate from Russia. What I can do is debate in committee what I would like to do as a delegate from Russia, but I can also use my notepad to write to people outside the committee, dear assistant, please do this for me. And it's typically things that are unilateral actions that you don't want the rest of the committee to know about. So one thing that usually happens is something big happens, like a bomb was dropped. I can launch an investigation on my end without the approval of committee, just through my notes that I'm writing to crisis. And they can research for me what went on, so then I can have new information to bring up in committee or to use to my advantage when I'm writing directives or getting things passed.
So just to go to make sure that you guys are completely clear with this, you guys are going to be simulating characters, right? And each one of these characters is going to have certain portfolio powers or certain powers. For example, if you are in Constellus and you're the if you're the head of finance or the CFO of the company, you'll obviously be in charge, if you were in real life, if you were part of this company, you'd be in charge of all financial matters. In a crisis committee or crisis room, the same applies. As CFO, you'd be in charge of all financial matters regarding the company. So you can do a lot of different stuff financially. For example, you can cut funding to departments. You can increase funding to one department or other. right? You can do audits, right? And stuff like that.
Oh, and just like portfolio powers, if someone wants to do something in committee that has something directly to do with finance, they need to go through you, or at least write a joint crisis note or have your okay on it, because that's like your department. So like you have to keep an eye out for like what other people are saying. Like if you are like the CFO and they're debating, our stock prices have dropped and we want to, I don't know, do a reevaluation on the value of our company or something like that, then you would be the one that would be in charge of that, and you could really push that directive forward. But through crisis notes, you could also be writing about doing things on your own. Is it making sense the way I'm saying this? Like,
I hope so. I mean, so I guess like an easy way to do this would be, let's try to give you guys like a concrete example of a situation where you use a crisis note and then also something in committee, right?
okay. So
yeah.
What if you're like the chief weapons officer?
Okay.
Is that one of the roles we have for? Okay. You're chief weapons officer. We just made up this role. I come in, I'm like, crisis update. We just had 2,000 weapons stolen from our arsenals, and they've been given to militants who are now attacking civilians.
Right. So as the chief weapons officer, what I do in committee would obviously be speak about this. I'd be like, okay, we need to get this done. We need to figure out who did this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the usual speaking. But in crisis notes, I might start doing something a bit more sneaky, right? So I might launch my own investigation privately, right? I might start helping and aiding these militants privately, even if I do find them, and try to get them on my side and form my own little private army through my crisis notes. And all that stuff. So there are two basic components that can basically happen, right?
What could also be the case too, if so say like, oh, this crisis update happens and all these weapons have leaked, maybe you actually leaked it yourself. So like, I don't know why you would do that, like that's kind of crazy, but say you did do that on your own, then through crisis you would say a lot of people will be launching investigations. Please like create, I don't know, like you could like plant false evidence on some other member in the committee through crisis notes, so that no attention would go on you for being the one who actually purposely leaked the weapons.
So remember that crisis is basically your external environment outside of everything in committee, right? So you're gonna have another like 14 delegates sitting in committee. Crisis is everyone outside. They could be your great aunt who works in the CIA, to your uncle who's like the head of Mossad or something, to basically anyone, right? So you can make up characters and make up people who you want to form relations with, right?
Anyone not sitting at the table is crisis. So if you're like, oh man, for whatever reason, I wish I could be talking to the President of the USA today, then write a note through crisis, dear President of the USA, and crisis can send that person to you to talk to you. So you can have meetings through crisis notes. You can call a meeting. You can say, I want to meet with this person. I think they would be helpful in talking about blah, 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 whatever it is that you want to talk about. And you can send a note to crisis, and then they can send a character to talk to you about that issue. So crisis is anyone not in the room that you think would be helpful, and you can make them up. They can be assistants, they can be spies, other like foreign leaders, doesn't matter.
And crisis is always going to respond as those people. For example, so if you send a note to crisis saying, dear Aunt Muriel, who works at the CIA, they're going to respond
as if they're your Aunt Muriel.
Yeah, so they're going to respond as that person to you, and they're going to try to further everything. So something that we definitely suggest is trying to build up, think about what you want to do in terms of crisis and what you want to do in committee, right? So we typically call this something called a crisis arc, right? Or a crisis path. And it's something, a crisis track rather, right? It's something that delegates basically want to achieve at the end of their 3 days through their crisis committee, through their crisis notes specifically, right? And a lot of times this isn't very above the table stuff. This is very like sneaky stuff that delegates might be doing, right? You might be launching investigations on others. You might be trying to further the cause of the committee through your own individual private ways, or you might be trying to further your own private incentives, right? For example, going back to the CFO situation, a very common thing that people might be doing is going and for kind of siphoning off money and forming their own organization, or privately laundering money and doing something else for their own organization, right? So all of this stuff does happen, and it's something to be aware of in crisis, right? Other things about crisis committees?
Yeah. So one thing you want to do is make sure, and it can be kind of difficult, so a crisis update happens and you're sending notes to respond. One thing to keep in mind is to help crisis understand why you are asking for what you're asking for. Give them a backstory. So whenever you write a note and you want to meet with the President of the United States, tell them why you want to meet with them and how this helps you and the committee out, or it helps your plan out. So one thing we notice with first-time delegates is it's their first time doing crisis, is they'll just write random notes that never are related to each other. And I don't really understand their point of view. So as a crisis director working in the room, I'm trying to understand your thought process on why you want certain things happening. So if you're telling me like, so you're like the chief weapons officer, and then out of nowhere you just say, please drop a bomb in the United States. I'm like, what? Like, why would you do that? What does that have anything to do with your crisis? Like what's going on in committee or what's going on in the current session? I would be very confused by that. But if you gave me some long backstory on why this makes sense, and you kind of gave me lots of notes that led up to that, then it'd be like, oh, I get what you're saying. Like, that makes more sense, so I could do that. However, one thing to keep in mind too, is sometimes crisis will shoot you down. So if you are in the Constellas committee, and even if you give me some long backstory, which you should do before any kind of big crisis, if you want to drop a bomb in the United States, I'm absolutely going to tell you, no, you can't do that. That has nothing to do with what you're doing. Like, I don't know why you want that. So even though that's kind of a far-flung example, you have to make sure that what you're trying to do through a crisis is A, relevant to your committee, and B, if crisis shoots you down, have a backup plan. So one thing we recommend to delegates is kind of go through your background, see what you guys are going to be debating, and think of possible crisis tracks that you would run through the room that you think are interesting. So you'll obviously have your in-room crisis track, but kind of think of things that you would do outside of the room through notes. Before you come to committee, try to implement some of them, see how crisis treats it. If they latch onto your ideas and work it into the main crisis track, that's great. But if not, have a backup idea.
Right. So just going to answer a few of your questions before we go ahead. One by Abhinav Dutt. Do these rules of procedure also apply to SC delegates? As the chair of the SC, this webinar said that SC would be vanilla GA-like committee. So the Security Council at ILMUNC India is going to be running like a normal committee, right? It may have certain crisis elements which your chair might integrate, but as such, it's not going to be a full-fledged crisis committee. You won't have access to crisis notes or everything to send out. Second by U1. Are the rules of procedure of a General Assembly the same as of a specialized committee?
They're much more relaxed. Like, I would say, like, a lot of the rules are at the chair's discretion. So if you really love Parley Pro, just make sure to take a chill pill before you come to a crisis room, because it's not going to be like a GA where every rule is followed like to the T. In fact, what a lot of times the chair will say, like, the chair looks favorably upon doing this thing, or well, I'm going to break Parley Pro to do this. Like, it often breaks, and you kind of just need to be like flexible.
Yep. Because we don't have like any like set speakers list or anything, it's just a continuous moderated caucus. There are various eccentricities that every single chair is going to have and try to implement in his or her running of committee. So they'll obviously inform you of what they like and what they want to do. And for those, you can also take a look at the committee specific webinars to get a better feel for what they wanted, right? So after that, are there any double delegations? No, we do not have any double delegations at ILMUNC India. After that, U1, on which basis will delegates be graded? So in crisis committees, we tend to try to equally weight out both the crisis and the in-room performance, right? So how basically, to be completely open, how it works is after debate is done and all the days, then the crisis director and the crisis chair are going to get together and talk about your performance in your crisis notes, because the crisis director has been responding to all of your crisis notes. He's going to be like, okay, this person did this in their crisis track. They were very clever and furthered their own agenda or furthered the committee's agenda by doing this. And then the committee chair is going to talk about your performance in committee and your moderated caucuses and unmoderated caucuses. And depending on both of these factors, they will adjudicate and like give out awards there.
Just so you know, every session is weighted the same. So like a Thursday night, however,
like a 2-hour session.
If it's a 2-hour session, gets the same amount of points for the session the following day in the next session. So keep that in mind. There's not a single session that you can slack off in, and it won't be reflected in the points. So they do give points after every single session based off your performance, and then they add them up at the end of the conference.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So what is a midnight crisis? So
I feel like they should know.
No, I don't think we're going to tell you that.
I feel like that's a secret.
It is
like
secret.
You have to just sort of,
go with it.
Yeah.
Whether we do or do not have a midnight crisis, we're kind of unsure about that.
Yeah.
So
I feign memory loss. I don't know what a midnight crisis is. All I know is it's fun.
Yep. Okay, so what is the ROP in the case of the crisis committee? So the rules of procedure in a crisis committee, like I said, it's once again going to be a continuous moderated caucus, and you can raise mini moderated caucuses within that, right?
They'll have unmods too. So like if there's, like something really big happens, they come in the room, a bomb has been dropped. Everyone's going to be writing a directive on how to respond to such a crisis. And if there's too many directives, you'll go into an unmoderated caucus where you'll merge them together. Kind of like they do that, like GAs have lots of merging. The one thing about merging that is different with a crisis is you have to be really careful to make sure, like, I guess this happens at GAs, I don't know. Sometimes, like, we just finished up ILMUNC, which is our college conference, and we had a lot of GA delegates in our crisis room, and they were acting like GA delegates, which was very frustrating. But they were writing clauses that were, like, really conflicting with each other, or they were really vague. In a crisis, you don't want the clauses to be as vague as you would maybe in a GA. You want, like, specific action to take place because this is a real-time crisis. It's not like you're writing policies for a problem that's out there. This is like the directive you write will affect the very next committee session. So we need you to actually write a directive that's really concise and has actual like things we can do versus like vague, like we suggest that so and so does whatever. Like no, say like we will do this.
So I guess like that's a great leeway into like the directives themselves and what a directive is.
It's not a working paper.
No, it's not. So a directive is like straight up a set of actions that you're going to take about a particular issue.
Not suggestions, actions.
Yeah. So that's a very important difference to make in a crisis committee, because I know a lot of GA people, especially in conferences in India, tend to be like, oh, and in GA we can't take decisive action, we need to suggest and recommend, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In a crisis committee, you guys are the board of a country, right? So this is as realistic as possible, and we do everything to simulate this as realistically as possible. So imagine that, or you're part of a cabinet or a presidential cabinet, right? So imagine that you're actually sitting around this, right? Imagine that the person in front of you is like actually the president. You're sitting in your little Russian equivalent to the Oval Office, and there's a mainstream crisis that hits you as part of Russia. Obviously, if you're part of the Russian cabinet, you're not going to sit and write out a resolution saying we recommend this happening. You're going to take decisive action. You're going to say, okay, move our military troops over here to take control of this issue. Financially, maybe we want to start devaluing or increasing the valuation of our currency to deal with an economic crisis. You guys are going to take very rapid, very swift action.
It's important you do this because it moves the committee along, because once you pass a directive, that will be sent to the crisis room. All of the staffers are going to read it, and then they're going to custom make the next crisis based off that directive. So you actually get to see a follow through on what happened. So, and sometimes something you'll do in your directive, like crisis will come back and it will have fully backfired or something it's really fun because it's very fast paced. Like you'll pass a directive, maybe you say move 2,000 troops here, and then you'll get like a response from your directive and they're like, oh, you guys moved these troops and they were all killed, so thanks for nothing. So you want to make sure like you're being smart in your directives and not saying like crazy stuff, but we will work it into the crisis track.
Yep, no, definitely. So if you guys have any other questions about like crisis committees or like directive writing and stuff like that, like feel free to just like kind of write it out to us. I know you guys have been pretty quiet about it in the
just back to crisis notes. Usually like with delegates over here, they have a lot of questions like how do I write a good crisis note? Like what do I write in my notes? Because it's kind of weird, like no one knows what anyone else is writing because they're all private, so it's kind of hard to learn sometimes. But one thing I would suggest always writing in notes is say what you want and say why you want it and how it will help you. So like the who, what, when, where, why, that kind of stuff needs to be in a crisis note. So instead of asking a question, how much money do we have available to spend on weapons? I would phrase a question with like, please prepare me a report on the financial status of our company, i.e. how much we could spend on weapons. This information is relevant to me. I need this information because I'm preparing to sell weapons to another company and I need to quote them a price. And I would like, does that make sense? Like, so you want to kind of give a reason to everything you're asking for, and don't just ask generic questions like, please launch an investigation on why 2,000 people were just killed if that was your crisis update. You might say something like, please prepare a report on the specifics of How would we phrase that?
On like the weapons that
Okay,
were used,
yeah.
or like the debris that's in that area, if it was explosion or something like that.
Yeah, and then also give us a how. Like, how are we going to do this? Like, when you're like, please launch an investigation. Like, let's just be honest. That's a pretty vague statement. What does an investigation mean? Like, please send 6 personnel to this area to be looking for this substance. I have a hunch that this happened, but I need to know this information to see if I'm right. Like, launch a hypothesis on what happened. But yeah, try not to be vague in your notes. Be specific. That way, the thing is, like, you're talking to real people on the other end, like myself, and we just want to know, like, what you're getting at. Because if we can understand what you want us to do, then we can write back to a really good note and implement your crisis track through the notes.
So how quickly will the accelerated time frame be moving in Constellas per session? So
Depends on you.
exactly. So a lot of this is going to depend upon your directives and how you want to implement it. There's never going to be something which is like, oh, okay, each session is going to be 6 months or something like that. It's going to be more like what's going on. For example, if they've thrown an update at you which requires like very intensive military planning and military movements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you guys pass a directive regarding the military movements. Obviously, that's not going to be done in a week or 2. That might take 6 months. So the next committee session, they might accelerate it 6 months. However, if you guys are in a very like short time period where something needs to happen every single day, they might just move it up 1 day or so. So usually they'll give you this time frame in the form of updates, right? So in written updates, you might have a date at the top, which will tell you how far you've advanced, or whenever people come in to give you an update, you can kind of ask them a question as to what year it is, what time it is. But
I wouldn't get too caught
Yeah.
up on the dates. They're not always very relevant. It depends. Like, we have like crisis here where we did one. It was like the Republican primaries, which is like a political party here. We did like the Republican primaries leading up to the election. Dates are going to be really, really important in that kind of committee. In Constellas, I'd be hard pressed to think that you would need to know the date every day or to know how quick time is moving. You'll understand more what I'm saying when you're in committee. But I wouldn't get too caught up on it. However, as far as how fast-paced the committee is, a lot of that has to do with you. So if you guys are responding to crisis updates really quickly with really good directives that have a lot of actionables that we can implement, then you're gonna have a pretty fast-paced committee. But if you guys aren't taking our hints or aren't grabbing onto things we're sending your way, it could move a little slower.
Yep. So the next question is: Are crisis directives more in crisis directives? Is creativity more valued or is technicality more valued? So I'd say I guess I'll give my answer. That Hannah might have her perspective on things too. So in my view, I feel I've always done a mixture of both. I love creativity. You need to be as creative as possible. You need to push the boundaries on what you can do in your crisis notes obviously realism is like the realisticness of it is a bit fudged in any crisis committee. Having said that, backing this creativity with technicality in the sense in terms of execution of your plans, what you want to do, going into very detailed, a step-by-step approach as to why you want to execute whatever you're trying to do, is going to make it more likely that the crisis group is going to respond to you. It's really hard to ignore a crisis note that's sent, which has a detailed plan with every single step, with contingencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no way that we can say, okay, this can't happen, right? So the more detailed and technical you get, the more likely it is to pass a crisis.
That's true. That's a really good point. I really agree with that. The only thing I would say is creativity is really great, but be realistic. Don't try to militarize space. It's not going to happen. People try doing that, and I just don't get it. That's too out there. Here's the deal. The more technical you are, the more creative you can be. Because if you are so detailed on every little thing you want to do, and it's fairly creative, then you can do it. Technicality is the foundation and the base for your creativity. But I would say that most crisis directors value creativity and they really like it. But you have to have a foundation and a base for what you're trying to do, which comes in the details. If you mean technicality, though, in the terms of the actual words you use, in GAs, it's really important to use words like "we suggest this" or "we recommend this." No, I don't think that's nearly valued in crisis. Whenever you're writing a directive, I don't think you need to work out for the particular terms you're using isn't as important.
So the next question was, I think, more of a logistical question. What is the Welcome to India webinar has been rescheduled? Yes, so the Welcome to ILMUNC India webinar has been rescheduled. Just keep checking your Facebook and your email, and we'll send out an update as to the new timing for that.
Oh, this is a good one. Are we supposed to give sources from which we have taken information? So, yes and no. Look, in a directive, you would never need to say where you got the information. When you're talking in committee, the only time like you'd have to like do fact checking with us is if we gave you information and you
Like I guess like it's more like you guys can't make up your own information about another delegate, I'd say.
You literally just can't like make stuff up. However, if you research and you can't find information on something, you can kind of shape that information through the way you like write crisis notes and portray yourself in committee.
Because remember, these are completely fictional committees, right? Or they're historical, and it's like it's however you wish to take it, right?
Constellus is definitely fictional.
Yeah,
It's not happening. Don't worry.
Like Constellus especially is a very, very fictional committee. So, and Russia is like more like historic based, right? So obviously, like and since when you're going to be simulating both of these in real time, obviously we're not going to have details of what's going on in the world in 2020 or your new world or however you're shaping the world in like 1992, right? It's going to be more, does this information that you're presenting to the committee make sense? It's not going to be like a GA where we're going to be like, oh, we need a Reuters report about everything, right? It's going to be more, has crisis given you this information? Have you acquired it through your crisis? Or for example, if you get up in committee and say, oh, I have intelligence of a giant plot that's about to unravel headed by the head of intelligence sitting right there who's a culprit, right?
You would probably need to have some evidence, like a
Yeah.
crisis note saying that was the case.
Right.
But
So-
not like, you know.
So you can't just make that up, but like crisis, you can go do it through crisis. You can be like, crisis, can you launch an investigation to the head of intelligence and see if he's doing anything shady? And if crisis responds saying, yes, the head of intelligence has been doing X, Y, and Z, then you can go up to committee and be like, I've received information that the head of intelligence is doing X, Y, Z, right? And that will be your fact checking
And then you can put him on trial. You could possibly behead him. You could give him a Viking's funeral after you behead him. Like, there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. So can the background guide be taken as a factual base? Yes.
Yes, 100. Whatever we wrote in there is real life to you. Like,
Yeah.
take it for face value.
Right, so for the Constellus background guide, just I guess like some clarifying information is that they've written a timeline up from 2015 or 2015. Are we 2015? Yeah, we're 2015.
2015.
Yeah, and so from like
Welcome.
2015 all the way to like 2020, and when the committee's actually going to start, and everything that they've written in that futuristic timeline has happened.
Has happened.
Similarly for Russia, they've written like a bit of a historical timeline from the time committee starts to like a while before that. So everything that's happened in the background guide can be taken as facts and can be taken as something that's happened. And
I was going to give an example on how real life facts don't always matter.
Yeah.
Okay. I was in this committee once, you guys, where we were working on building the Panama Canal. And a lot of our work, so we got a crisis update saying, hey, a lot of your workers have gotten sick with malaria and it has halted the building of the Panama Canal. And so immediately, like, we write a directive saying, like, send them mosquito nets and, like, you know those like little hat helmets that have, like, the netting around it? So the mosquitoes don't bite them in the future and they can keep building. Well, some, like, doucheknit was like, oh, well, mosquito nets actually hadn't been, like, discovered until 3 years later, so it's not really fair to write a directive saying mosquito nets over. So then what I did, I was like, please invent the mosquito net early. Like, you can change history. You don't have to actually follow it to a T. This guy was just like really into facts. And so my chair was like, oh, that's not really that big of a deal if they want to send mosquito nets over and they haven't been invented. Then we just wrote another directive that just said, invent the mosquito net. And boom, we were able to send them to our workers. So don't get super stuck on history. Though, like, especially in crisis, it's more important to like be creative and think of solutions versus getting obsessed with like when things were invented, because we'll just invent them quicker than they were.
So another question by A.H. Can we have people framed / arrested or even killed who are part of our own committee? Yes, you can.
Wait, where are you reading that?
Right here.
Can we have people? Whoa, you are so devious. Yes, you can do that.
So yeah, you can definitely
Okay.
do that. So
Did I kill the answer?
and like it definitely happens quite frequently in crisis committees, right? However, every time you want to do this, you usually need to have a very detailed and thought out plan for how you want to kill someone.
You cannot just go around killing people. Like, you need to tell us why they're going to be killed.
Yeah, and usually like if you want to kill someone in committee, that's like something that you develop over the course of a day.
Yeah, don't do that on the first day. We will not allow that to happen.
Yeah, so you can't just be like, oh, kill him because I'm
It's
bored.
like a Saturday thing.
So you need to have like a very, very detailed plan, a reason as to why you want to kill him, and we need to see that killing him is going to result in something positive for the committee or something positive for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you want to take over power, or you want to take over his resources, or maybe like he's being very like he's like completely like going against the committee or something like that. So we want to see it from your perspective. It cannot just be like randomly like, hey, I want to do this for the hell of it.
And you need to back this up. Your first note about killing this person can't come up with, I want to kill him. You need to like build it up over time and then drop that information that that's what you're trying to do. Also, we actually will kill people for you. Like we will remove, like we will like kill them and then they come back to committee as a new character. So if someone dies, we'll actually remove them.
Because remember, these are very strenuous times. In any government restructuring, for example, like in reconstructing Russia, there were definitely a ton of deaths within the cabinet itself because people are obviously a giant power struggle. It's and it's so we're gonna try to keep this as realistic as possible.
But you can kill people.
But yeah,
it is Russia. The KGB, they just do what they want. So.
if there are Russian viewers watching, we were just joking. Anyway,
I'm not joking. They do what they want.
So next one is the information from Wikipedia allowed?
Did you write the page yourself?
So obviously we don't allow citation, like you to like cite Wikipedia as like a proper source in any committee. Having said that, Wikipedia is always a great guideline to kind of like figure out your research and figure out where you want to kind of like.
If it's actually legitimate information that's on Wikipedia, then it's also somewhere else.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like if you really think Wikipedia is the easiest way to go about it, then just go down to the citation, see where that person actually got the info, and then just use that to make sure. I mean, but we don't check citations.
Yeah.
So.
We usually don't. So I mean,
also, if you're trying to go to college, like stop using Wikipedia because that's just not gonna fly when you write papers. People will not be happy with you.
Yeah, I know. So general rule of thumb: avoid Wikipedia. Use it as a general guideline to shape your research, but don't cite from it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't need to cite anyway. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So I guess Abhinav Dutt once again asked the same question. I think his feed got interrupted. Do the rules of procedure which apply to SC delegates apply? Is SC crisis basically the essence of his question? SC is not.
Wait, what's the question?
The first one. So the Security Council is not going to run as a crisis committee. It may have certain crisis elements to it, which is going to be at the chair's discretion, but there's not going to be any notes. There's not going to be a separate crisis room, right? So it's going to basically run as a normal committee, right? Yeah. So we're going to wait for for a minute and a half or so for like any other questions that you guys may have. Feel free to shoot anything. I know this is a slightly confusing crisis webinar, so if you guys want any clarifications, now is definitely the time to do it.
We're confusing you.
Yeah.
Write more questions. One thing to keep in mind too in crisis is try to be collaborative with your other delegates. Crisis directors love it when they get co-notes, like joint notes to crisis. If you and the buddy sitting next to you or across the room, whatever, if you guys are sending in crisis notes and kind of working together to create a solution, chairs and crisis directors look really favorably upon that. We want to see that you work with each other. It's not, the whole point of a crisis is to work together, to be collaborative and come up with something, but then to also be doing something on the side that helps you. So you can do your own thing in your notes, but in the room, definitely be collaborative. And we love it when you guys send in joint notes. It shows that you work together and that, that's a good thing.
So in crisis committees, our delegates graded 50% in directives and 50% in the rest. So, I mean, once again, it depends from committee to committee, but usually, around that. There's usually equal wage given to your in-committee performance and your out-of-committee performance, right? So...
Be nice to your chairs, okay? They will be giving you points, so always be very respectful of your chair.
Buy them roses. That always works.
It doesn't always work. You don't need to buy them roses.
So being a part of the Constell's Crisis Committee, is it possible that we can talk to heads of other countries that may not be involved in the crisis?
Yes! Where have you been? You can do that. We encourage that.
Yep. So all of crisis is
if it makes sense.
Yep.
Continue
It
talking.
completely does. So all of crisis is once again going to be everyone who's non-committee, right? So this can be heads of other countries, anyone basically. Anyone in the entire world that you can think of who's not in your room is crisis, right? So you send a note out as though you're speaking to that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, good. This is a good question.
Okay. So this person asked, is diplomacy very necessary in a crisis committee, or does getting your way suffice? It's a mixture. Like, you don't want to come across like a brat. Like if you're being outwardly rude to your other delegates, like here's the deal. If someone is talking, do not raise your placard. That's really rude. Wait until they are done talking and then raise your placard. Because chairs don't like that pushy delegate. I mean, most people don't. Like if you're being really pushy. But yeah, like you want to be diplomatic, which is good. But through crisis notes, you definitely want to be getting your way. Like, and you can be shaping crisis tracks through your notes to serve your own benefit.
So to think about this, think about this in a very realistic situation, right? You are an individual. You are sitting on a board, right?
Hold up, that's crazy. Think of it like a group project where you guys get graded. So you want the group project to be good, but say you get a group grade and you get an individual grade. You want the group project to be really, really good, but you also want to make sure your personal grade is super good. So you're definitely working harder on your own thing. Continue with your example.
Yeah, no, so I'll let someone know, right, to go for a more realistic situation, assuming that you're in...
projects are very realistic.
That is true. For high school students. Imagine that you're on the board of a company or something, right? Obviously, you want your company to succeed because you're invested in that company. But you also want probably to gain more power, to gain more money. You have all your personal agendas as this individual, right? So you want to figure out a way to further both, to further your company as well as further yourself. And that's definitely something we are highly going to encourage and look at. Okay.
In the characters, if you guys flip to where have they been given their characters?
Yeah.
Then is it written into their characters things that they specifically care about?
No, so they're going to be given that when they get to committee.
This is great. Whenever you guys get to committee, you're going to get a more detailed character background guide, and it will tell you exactly what you care about. It'll say, I don't know, it's kind of weird to tell you without giving it away, so I'm not going to tell you what it will say, but basically it gives you more information on what you're trying to accomplish personally as a delegate.
Mm-hmm. So, so you guys are definitely getting, let's just go for the next question.
This is that it?
No. Our presidential addresses welcome during crisis. So you're not really going to have, because you guys are not going to be countries, right? You guys are individuals in either Constellus or individuals in the Russian cabinet, right? So a presidential address in the Russian cabinet, your president's going to be sitting right in front of you, so he's going to be if he wants to talk to you guys, he'll talk to you, right? The chair is ideally the president there. Presidential addresses don't really apply to both the committees that we're in, I think, but...
Short answer is, they're not, unwelcome, we'll kick you out and laugh at you, but, you don't really need to do them. They're just not relevant.
Yep. So after that, will SC be discussed in this webinar too? So SC, it's more of a GA-ish aspect, but if you have questions about the Security Council, feel free to ask them, and we can kind of go through those with you as well.
Questions are yes, welcome.
Yep. So in the case of a crisis committee, if a delegate wishes to use his portfolio powers in such a way that the board disapproves of it, is it still possible that the delegate can perform that action through a personal directive? Yes, and that's exactly what we want you guys to do during crisis, right?
You said that very well.
Yeah.
I wish I'd phrased it that way.
Yeah.
That was very succinct. Congratulations.
Definitely. So obviously there are going to be some, for example, if your portfolio power is going to be very definitively listed and given to you when you get to committee on the day of, right? And you can use and manipulate this portfolio power and push crisis as much as possible through this. Obviously, crisis is going to may say no to you in some cases. They may be oh, this needs board approval if you want to do massive action, right? But a majority of the time, they'll try to go run with your crisis arc. They'll try to run with whatever you want to do in your personal directives and influence the committee in that way too. Remember, your personal directives do influence committee. If you're doing something shady in committee and that, for example, if you're sending covert troops to do something, the entire committee might get an update saying, oh my god, a bunch of troops just broke into whatever, we're unsure of who hired them, right? And you'll secretly be laughing saying, oh, that was me, right? So, yeah.
So the question just asked, are the background guides important, or can we just search it on Google? Constellus is a fictional situation. You could search it on Google and you will find nothing. We literally pulled it out of thin air. If you do not read the background guide, you'll be so screwed. Yes, they're so important. It's kind of like your Bible.
Mm-hmm. So even in Russia, the thing is there's so much going on in that time period.
Yeah.
So we've kind of streamlined that into what we think is important.
We've curated
a
history for you.
Yeah. So definitely read your background guides. I know they're 20 to 40, 20 pages I think is crisis background guides, but they're 20 pages of very important information, right?
And why would you search it on Google when we just put it all in one nice little area for you? That was really nice of us.
Actually,
we did that just for you.
So like especially in crisis committees, like your background guides are the one thing you really want to base your research off of, or like because like at the end of the day, I mean obviously you should have surrounding information, but if you get in there with the crisis, with having read your background guide, understanding the situation, having a lot of creativity and technicality, you can easily win a committee, right? It doesn't matter like how intensively you researched before. There's a reason why we say crises are very ad hoc committees in nature. It's because it depends more on your on-the-spot thinking, your creativity, and how you respond to external stimuli.
Yeah, it's always good to research, but like when we give you a crisis update, even if like in Russia where actually this stuff is real, when we give you an update, you're not going to have time to research what we're talking about. You're going to just think on your feet and kind of come up with a solution. So it's always good to like do additional research, but you would be just fine reading your background guide for most everything.
Yeah, definitely. So Jack
And
Sparrow,
a lot of facts and figures are not super important.
Not at all. So Jack Sparrow, I just added a captain in front of that. God damn it, too
Really?
much.
Really cussing? These are high school students. Get it together, man.
Does a crisis situation forego the foreign policy of a country, if the need be? Will there be points on its violation? So once again, you guys are not simulating countries, right? You guys are simulating individuals.
I'm getting the vibe you haven't read the background guide yet. I'm just messing.
So yeah, so I mean definitely like understand the fact that you guys are simulating individuals and not countries. So there's not really any foreign policy of an individual, right?
Yeah.
Unless you want to make one up.
For Russia though, are there individuals?
Yeah. So
real people?
yeah, they're real people.
Yeah. It just depends. Like you can. Yeah, I mean, it's not a super hard one, but like you wouldn't want to you want to act in character. So like with your Russian people, you'd want to like stay in character, but you can still deviate a little bit. But with Constellus, there isn't a foreign policy.
So this next question is actually a pretty good one. What if your country or personality's views don't correspond to your own views? Can you suggest ways for debating your country's view of the topic when you don't see something such as military intervention as a good long-term solution to the issue? So that's welcome to Model UN, right? And like this is probably one of the biggest learning points of Model UN is definitely it pushes you, it shows you new perspectives on things, right? And oftentimes pushes you to think in ways that you normally would not like to think and kind of be devil's advocate for various issues, right? I know there were definitely issues where I was very, very passionate about in terms of one way, and I had to completely go against my own beliefs while representing a country. And I took it more as a learning experience. I was like, okay, there are definitely people in the world who look at the issue this way. This is the thought process behind it. I took it very analytically, and that really helped me and helped shape my perspectives to it.
So short answer is no, stay in character as much as you can. It's good for you. You don't have to agree with it once you leave conference, but you will learn a lot. And you'll learn more about yourself and what you actually believe by learning what other people believe. So it's actually very enriching. And that's what we provided. Ivy League Model United Nations Conference is an enriching experience.
All right, so I think the questions are starting to kind of like slow down, but we are here for another like 10 minutes for you guys. So we're gonna wait for another minute and a half or so and see if we get any questions coming in.
In the meantime, what can we tell them about that they didn't ask to know about?
Oh boy.
Yeah. What do they want to know? Like what
Oh yeah.
Should we give them any tips? We actually compete in crisis all the time as delegates.
Yeah.
We love it. Like I way prefer going to a crisis because they're just really fast paced and they make you think on your feet.
Yeah.
It's like a drama's happening all the time.
It's like your own little real world television show where you're like doing kind of all this crazy stuff.
It's like you're in the war zone.
Yeah.
You're always in the war room.
You're like fighting off spies.
The situation room.
Yeah. That's perfect.
That's exactly what it's like. You're always in the situation room.
Yeah, it's scary to think about the fact that like in real life this is probably happening like all the time. Like there's probably some random crisis and there's like a closed committee room just kind of dealing with it every single step of the way, right? So there were a lot of okay, so another question that's come up by delegate. There were a lot of conspiracies circling around many of the characters given in Reconstructing Russia Committee. Is it okay to bring up these conspiracies if the situation arises? Definitely.
Yeah, that's why we wrote them in there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say leverage these conspiracies, right? You can, if you want to further your own personal track, you can like, through crisis, you can leverage this through blackmail, you can leverage this to all these like crazy stuff that you want to do. So, as opposed to just bringing it up in committee and saying, oh, this guy was involved in this scandal, you might want to try to leverage that scandal, involve it in your crisis arc, and get more information about it. Or, yeah, I don't really know.
Like sometimes it helps me when I'm thinking of what devious thing to do to like physically go like this And I'm like, what shall I do?
Release the dogs,
Oh, goodness gracious. And then I get more devious what I'm trying to do.
All right. So did I just hear that
There's-
delegates do not have to
there's no
cite their
speakers list.
sources in position papers? There are no position papers for crisis committees, right? In normal GAs, you do have to follow that format and cite. We're not obviously, because you guys are high school students, we're not going to be extremely strict on citations. However, it would definitely add a lot of legitimacy to your position paper, and if you did cite your sources out, right? Come on, guys, no plagiarism. Honor Council will haunt you. Yes, don't plagiarize. Nothing else to say to that. And I assume there will be no speakers list. No, there is no speakers list in a crisis committee. It's all just a continuous moderated caucus.
The chair will try to evenly call on you. Like, they keep track of, because it's a much smaller room. Like, is there going to be 25, 30 of them?
There's going to be 15 of you in every crisis committee,
Oh,
so
15.
it's a very small crisis
15,
committee.
oh wow, that's really small. So, like, they'll keep track, and they'll try to call on you evenly. So, you'll always get lots of opportunities to talk. In fact, you talk all the time. It can actually be very stressful, because you're like, God, I need to say something.
You're like, oh my god, I need to keep talking.
I need to keep talking.
So yeah, I mean, once again, like in crisis committees, it's always going to be continuously like you're either going to be talking, writing directives, or basically
I do feel
writing
like-
crisis notes.
I do feel like we should reward them with, like, some of our tips that we use, because they did tune into this webinar.
That's
so we
true.
should tell them things we do.
That's fair.
Can I give them, like,
Go for it.
never echo the sentiments of the person who goes before you. So if someone's like, oh, I condemn these actions, don't be like, oh, I fully agree with the previous speaker. Think of a nuanced opinion. So you always want to have a different opinion. Well, it doesn't have to be different at the core, but you don't want to echo their sentiments. So you always want to add on something new that you believe. Like, yes, I agree with this, but I also want to add on these 3 points. It's very important, and your chair will, like, take note of that, because you always want to be bringing new ideas to the table.
And I guess, like, in terms of, like, sorry, there's one more question that came in. Do all crisis committees commence with directives? So directives are basically, like, your response to the action that crisis committees get you, right? So the minute, like, someone gives an update in, everyone's probably going to start writing directives, right? Everyone's going to be like, oh, I want to respond to this in this way, right? And they're just going to start passing the directives around. So how directives work is, assuming you're sitting in, like, a table like this, right? A boardroom. I'm going to write out my directive, name it something, write myself as the sponsor, and pass it to the person next to me. You ideally need maybe, like, I don't know how many signatories the chair is going to say, 4 to 6 probably, to kind of submit that directive. So once you have 4 to 6 signatories, you can submit that directive to the chair. The chair is going to be like, okay, I have a directive on the floor. Do you guys want to vote on this? So you guys are going to vote on this directive. Once if this directive passes, it gets sent to crisis, and crisis will be like, okay, this is the response they've taken to my action. And then crisis is going to be like, okay, how can I respond now? And then they'll throw something else back at you, right? And then the directive process starts again. So it's like a continuous cycle of directives and crisis updates, directives, crisis updates, right? And there can be multiple directives on any given crisis update.
Oh yeah, like, that's why we have you merging together, because people are always writing tons of directives.
Okay. And so questions, communiques instead of resolutions, I presume. So communiques refer to, like, unanimous consent by the entire committee.
Oh, communiques?
Yeah, communiques.
Instead of resolutions.
So communiques are unnecessary. We just need majority vote, right? So 50% plus 1 is how much you need to pass a directive, right? How will the best delegate be decided? So we've gone over this already, but yeah,
You'll
it's
just
basically
have to rewatch all this stuff to find out.
it's basically 50% in committee, 50% out of committee.
Yeah.
Is SE part of the crisis committees? So SE is a crisis committee size, but it acts as more like a GA, right?
In Constella's.
So asked by, I'm not even gonna try pronouncing that name, but in Constella's.
I'll try. Garvidzalani.
Garvidzalani.
Is that close? No.
I hope we're not butchering your name.
I'm really bad at this. Like, seriously.
I should be better, I have no excuse.
In Constella's crisis committee, is it possible that the board can remove a delegate from the board through board
direct? Yes.
Yeah, like, I mean, if it makes sense and people vote on it. Like, if you guys pass a directive to remove someone and it passes with a majority, then yeah, they would be removed. They will be reincarnated and come back as someone new. We don't, like, make you sit in a broom closet.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do that.
So it's happened a ton of times in the committees.
I've been removed before and beheaded. I had was sent to my family. It was very sad.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've like, in a crisis committee I was in, we kind of took the president out of power, and then we had elections amongst our own board as to who would be the new president, which was also very interesting.
So emotional. It's
Yeah.
very gripping stuff, guys.
So you can do pretty much anything as long as you're like able to back it up, right?
I mean, if you got your whole group to vote to remove someone, that's just cold.
But that's like, I mean, yeah, there's nothing.
That happens,
Yeah,
but
it does.
it's cold.
All right, so we have another 5 minutes left. So any last questions, and we'll probably give
We should
closing
go back
remarks.
to our tips.
Yeah.
I feel like tips are a good thing to give people.
Let's do it.
I already gave one. It's your
Okay.
turn.
Okay, wait. How far is sarcasm?
You're getting distracted. You're supposed to
I am.
give a tip and then read a question.
Okay, wait. Answer the question first and then tip.
No. We're definitely
Okay,
going to
fine.
tip first.
So my tip for crisis
So an
delegates.
award-winning delegate, tell us the
not really.
bestest tip you have.
Okay. Have to think about this one for a while.
What?
I mean, it's kind of interesting. So, do you want to jump in? Because I'm trying to that one.
You gotta think of a tip.
I gotta think of a tip to give you guys.
Yeah, you're on the spot here. Come on, what do you do?
So, I mean, my tip's always like, I guess like my one tip would be like, especially if you are a pretty decent presence in committee, people are going to start coming after you, right? Either through their crisis notes or otherwise. Definitely protect yourself. That's something I do almost every time. I have my own little like network of people who are like either like
Through
spying on
crisis
others
notes.
through crisis
You'll
notes,
want
right?
to set this up.
On the first day, and the very first day, I kind of go into committee and I set up my own little protective network. I hard code my computers, etc. So the minute anyone ever launches an investigation on me or like tries to like sabotage my efforts, the crisis immediately responds saying, "Okay, this guy's trying to sabotage you," and then I basically bring that up in committee and kind of ruin that other delegate's crisis arc who's going against me. So another fun tip to do: you can protect yourself. So
Now I go to our question.
So question, how far is sarcasm and humor welcome in committee? Can delegates like hire KGB mercenaries for assassinations? So first question, I guess I'll answer. Second question, Hannah can. Sarcasm and humor, please don't be mean regardless of what you do.
Blow
right?
it up.
Like, we are not going to tolerate anything insulting or bad language or stuff like that in committee is not going to be tolerated.
You would never do that in a boardroom, so you don't
Yeah.
do it at Malawian.
Right, so yeah, I mean, apart from that, being funny in a nice way is obviously very appreciated. It might make you likable as a person to other delegates, right? But nothing too bad.
Can delegates hire KGB mercenaries for assassinations? Yeah, you can. I mean, that's within the realm of what you'll be doing. You can do that, but just have it make sense. It's all about making sense, you guys. Like, if we don't know what you're trying to do, we won't improve it. But if we get you,
That's fair.
it'll work.
How much MUN experience do you have? Well, I'm somewhere in the 40s, but that's just me.
Really?
Yeah, because
Wow.
I used to go to. I was in India for a long time, and we all know how many MUN conferences happen
You
there.
guys,
so.
I am so excited to come to India. I think it's going to be super
It's
fun.
gonna be really
I just thought of another tip.
Okay, go for it.
Have good handwriting.
Oh yes.
Holy crap. If I can't read your handwriting, I honestly, it's like, there's no point in writing a 2-page crisis note if it's just scribbles and I can't understand it. Take time, slow down, and like actually fully circle the O's, dot your I's, because we honestly, we cannot read your handwriting, we can't implement your great idea. So just really try as hard as you can. Some of the handwriting I see, I'm like, I don't even think these are letters. I think this is just like very abstract art. Like,
as much as we appreciate art.
yes, and I do appreciate art, but it's, yeah, really, seriously, you guys, it's such a basic thing, but please work on your handwriting, or at least slow down. Don't write in cursive.
So A.H asked a question, I'm assuming it's regarding Constellus. Is our main goal to organize a coup against the Assad regime? So as part of Constellus, you've been hired out by the... You could do that, that's a possible option. You've been hired out by the United States of America to fight a war against and take down the Assad regime. So how you guys want to do that is completely up to you. If you think organizing a coup internally would work and putting someone else in power might work, that can be your entire crisis arc, and you need to build up to figure out what steps you take to kind of get that done and get that implemented. So yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. Right?
Should we wrap it up now?
Yep, so I think we're out of time. If you guys do have other questions, feel free to contact your individual crisis committees. I will put the emails down, but it's Constellus at ILMUNCindia.com and reconrussia at ILMUNCindia.com. Right, so we'll just type it out for you guys. Outside of that, closing remarks, once again, we're very, very excited to be a part of ILMUNC India and kind of...
Dash India?
Yeah, Dash India, and kind of meet you guys soon. The crisis committees are definitely one of our most competitive committees that we have, right? But also one of our, it's Recon Russia.
Recon
Russia. but also one of our most exciting committees, right? And we have a full dedicated staffing team, which is going to be able to kind of respond to your crisis updates. It's going to be there for you guys, right? So definitely take advantage of them, push your boundaries, have a ton of fun with these committees, right? Because I know that it's been some of my best experiences in ILMUNC crisis committees, right? Okay, guys. So that's about it. I think we're going to probably be signing off. And once again, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot it out to the emails. And this is also going to be recorded and posted on our YouTube page. So yeah, feel free to go rewatch this in case you missed out on anything or you want points. I know some of you guys said you were bothered by advertisements or something like that, so feel free to just rewatch this video.
Just watch it over and over and over. This is probably one of the best videos on the internet right now. So
we're going viral, guys.
Honestly, just keep watching. We need hits.
We're
trying to get famous here off our Ustream.
All right, bye guys.
Goodbye.